Okay, it started.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Executive Community Board meeting for CB3 for the month of February 2021. Thank you all for coming tonight, and we're going to go ahead and get started with our roll call, attendance, and approval of January's minutes.
Alicia Lewis Coleman,
Yes.
Larissa Shainberg, Larissa, Eric Diaz, Shirley Fennessy, yes, abstain. Thomas Rosa,
Yes.
Anisha Stephen, yes. Sorry, hope I said that right. Yes. Mei Lee,
Yes.
Jackie Wong,
Yes.
Linda Jones,
Yes.
Michelle Cooper-Smith,
Yes.
Trevor Holland,
Yes.
and Paul Rankle.
Yes.
Great.
Eric Diaz is here. I'm sorry.
Okay, Eric, I got you. We'll change
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, I'm just trying to get my agenda up here. Minutes, agenda, here we go. Okay, so thank you so much. So let's get right into my report. So I attended the borough board this morning, which was really great. I don't often get an opportunity to do so. And so today was really a great opportunity to listen in on a bunch of things that the other community boards were working on. And actually they went over the city's preliminary budget, and I believe Susan is going to get into that. And she also sent that out to us last month for everyone to review. I don't know how many people actually got an opportunity to look it over with your committee members at the various committees. I believe that Linda was the only one that responded to Susan about it. So hopefully everyone, you looked it over and you were able to see if there was anything of interest. As you know, there are $5.25 billion budget cuts gap in the budget that's going to be happening. So that was talked about this morning. Also, we had a visitor there, a woman named Willanina. I'm sorry, I'm not saying her name right, but Mrs. Gordon was there from Narcotics Anonymous. It was really great to hear the information that she was sharing, but really sad in the same aspect because she was saying that's over 82,000 increase in cases of new people that are being diagnosed with a drug addiction or alcohol addiction since COVID has struck. And there are so many overdoses since 2020, May of 2020 of last year, when we were in the thick of COVID. So it was really interesting listening to her give her report. I just wanted to share with anyone, if there's anyone that's struggling with addiction, NA and AA are all online virtually. So so that's a good thing to know. Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit. I know Larissa is going to share this information too about Zoom practices. So we want to make sure like we're working on all of the things that are like FUPAs or whatever happens to us during Zoom meetings, that we get caught up. I know that Michelle visited us, she visited with the idea of having webinar versus the regular Zoom. So I think during the webinars, I believe that the conversation is kind of cut off and only the host can see the conversation in the chat room. I really think that we should further explore that, although I do know the controversy with the idea of the public having an opportunity to speak and all of that. We don't want to lose that as well, but we have to figure out a way of fixing it because this chat room situation is really getting out of hand for us at our last full board meeting, and even at several other committee meetings, people go into the chat room and they have ongoing discussions, and it makes it very difficult for it's distracting, right? And so we lose focus during the meeting, and sometimes stuff gets lost and things get mixed up. So I'll let Larissa further explore that. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about yeah, that's it. I really don't have much else to say. I think that we are exploring various things in the budget and also the Zoom practices and what, oh, one last thing, hybrid meetings versus online meetings continuously. So we want to see when the city does open up what we're going to do. It was discussed a little bit this morning as well. And I think that, you know, we will probably continue to talk about this maybe at our March full board, at our March executive meeting, to further discuss whether or not what we're going to do when we go live again, back in the, you know, meeting in public again. So and what that's going to look like. We have to wait and see what the city's response is going to be, but it should also be right there in the midst of our conversation. And so I think that's it for me for my report tonight. I don't want to keep anyone longer than necessary because I know other people have a lot of things that they want to talk about. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next report, which is the first vice chair's report. Larissa, to continue the conversation around Zoom.
Linda, did you make her a panelist? Linda, you're muted, by the way. Okay, she's on now.
Yeah, there she is. Sorry, Larissa, I didn't realize you were in the wrong place.
Yeah, it was in the chat room.
Linda, we can't hear you.
Yes, we can.
You can hear me. I think you can't hear Larissa.
I
There
was
she is.
Did
muted.
not find my link. Oh, Larissa's saying she couldn't find her link.
Sorry. Yeah, I really, really
Of all
need to be
people,
better.
Larissa,
I know. So
you're Zoom mistress.
Are you there, Larissa?
shame
Now
on
you're
me.
muted.
Oh,
No,
goodness.
she's not.
No,
No.
shame on me. Shame. Okay, I'm gonna put the cone of shame on for the next week. Yeah, I really need to get better about cleaning out my inbox. I have way too many emails and just trying to find my invites. Need to take care of them better. But I digress. Okay, thanks for promoting me. Yeah, so for my report, I do want to talk about, and I know Susan is going to talk about this as well, the Zoom facilitators and best practices. I have reached out to see if we have any additional volunteers to help share the Zoom facilitator responsibilities. Didn't get any responses. We did get Jackie volunteering to help out. Heidi volunteered to help out with the Health and Human Services Zoom facilitators. So she would be my backup as I'm the facilitator for that meeting. We still lack a Zoom facilitator for SLA, but I did reach out to Michelle. I'll send an official email if you need me to let her know that I am available to help out. I know it would be better if someone were on the committee doing it, but in the meantime, I'm happy to fill in. I do have a checklist for all Zoom facilitators to help make sure we are prepared properly and ready to go for our meetings. I'm editing that. I went over that with Susan this week, and we'll be putting that out to all Zoom facilitators just to help us all be on the same page and running our meetings very smoothly. Also, I'm editing and shortening the greeting and instructions for our Zoom meetings because, as Susan stated, by now everyone has heard it so many times they could probably recite it in their sleep. So I will be editing that down so everyone still gets the instructions, but it just doesn't go on so long. The only other thing on my report, and yes, we do need to talk about a webinar versus meeting. I think it would be a very good idea to decide something on that because I agree with Alicia. The chat is just getting out of control. People are using it to soapbox. Oh, sorry, Susan. Yes.
I was going to do that as my report from the Borough Service.
Sorry.
Desk.
Okay, then I'll stop. I'll skip that then. Perfect. Because I do know you have some information on that from Gail and some guidance, which is great. So then the only other thing for my report is for secretary. We did reach out to see if anyone would be willing to nominate someone or nominate themselves. We do have Thomas Rosa, who has stepped up to nominate himself for position of secretary, which would mean we would need to have someone, if he's successfully elected to that position, then we would need someone to fill. I know. We would need someone to fill in as treasurer. So May, if there's anyone else on your committee that you would like to promote to the executive committee, it seems like the entire Health and Human Services committee.
And so if Thomas becomes the secretary of, if he is elected to the secretary of this committee, no, he can, he can do that. Because
Yeah,
Eric Diaz
yeah.
did that before,
Yeah,
where he was
yeah.
the secretary of the Human Services and also some kind of secretary of the exec.
Yeah, he served in two positions.
And it's appropriate, the way to nominate somebody is how? By sending an email to Linda?
What?
I said the way to nominate somebody is how? To send an email to Linda?
About what?
No, you would send it to me if you wanted to
Okay.
nominate someone. Yes, if you
Yeah.
have, but
Okay.
the nominations were
The
closed right now.
nominations are all
They-
closed.
They
But
can do
for
that on the
treasurer,
Wait,
No,
he
for
was
the,
closed a long
no,
time
I meant
ago.
the treasurer,
We-
sorry.
We'll talk
Oh,
about the
treasure, we
next
haven't discussed
election.
that yet, but yeah, we'll set that
Yeah.
up. We'll set that up, absolutely.
Yeah. We'll talk about that at the full board once we get
Correct.
through with the secretary position. One thing at a time. Okay.
Please.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay, and that's it for my report. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Next we'll have the second
Just had
vice
one
chair's
comment.
report.
That's
Oh,
why I put
yes,
my
I'm
hand up.
sorry. Go ahead, Paul. I didn't see your hand. I apologize.
Trevor.
Trevor,
Who is that? Trevor. Oh, I'm sorry.
just one thing with regards to the Zoom meetings, and I kind of treat them like if we were in person. So for my meetings, the chat only goes to the host, which seems to work because you would not have conversations in a regular meeting that everyone would hear. And I think
That's
that's
correct.
a
It's
little
part of
more.
my report. That's
Yep,
part of
Okay.
my
trust me,
report.
Susan's going to address that.
Sure.
And I agree, Trevor. No one would be doing that in a regular meeting at all.
Okay.
Those side conversations would not be tolerated.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Next we have the second vice chair's report. Eric Diaz.
Hi, can you guys hear me? So I was tasked with following up on attendance for CB3 members. There were 3 letters that went out to Herbie Hewitt, Felicia Cruikshank, and Troy Velez because they're all under the threshold of, or rather they were over the threshold of the allowed absences. Something I can identify with personally, having been there several times. My update to the executive committee, and I can actually share this with you guys right now, is that for the past 3 months, Felicia Cruikshank unfortunately is at 75% absent of her committee meetings and 50% absent of the full board meetings, which means combined, she's been absent in these past 3 months, 64% of the time, which is over the threshold of, I believe it's 35%, 33%, 1/3 of all allowed meetings you can have as absent. Herman Hewitt and Troy Velez have both improved in the past 3 months. Herman Hewitt has attended all the full board meetings. So has Troy Velez, and 70% of all his meetings at committees for Herman Hewitt, and 100% for Troy Velez. So Herman Hewitt and Troy Velez have picked up their attendance requirements for the past 3 months. But Felicia Cruikshank is unfortunately still at 64% absent of all her committee meetings. And so I present that to the exec committee. I think, the bylaws have to now allow us to talk about what to do moving forward with them. But I give that to the chair for what's next. Susan has a hand raised.
Yeah, Felicia is due for renewal, and she hasn't renewed yet, and the renewal deadline is Monday. So I guess one thing just to suggest to consider is to, whatever you decide to do is maybe first wait and see if she renews.
I agree. Yeah, because I think the next step, Eric, would be she would have to come and meet with the executive committee and discuss what action, we would take at that point, whether it would be if she was going to correct the behavior or whatever's going on, maybe she would share it with us, and then it would be a conversation around removing her as a board member. So, all right. Thank you, Eric. So yeah, continually, keep up with the attendance and let's continuously review it. I believe the next time we have another review of the attendance will be in April, as we are then going to be getting ready for new board members to come on board, hopefully.
Can I ask, have you decided that if she does reapply, that you will send her a letter to come to the next exec, but that if she doesn't reapply, you won't send a letter? Is that what has been decided?
So that's what, well, let's discuss. I mean, I believe that is the procedure that is supposed to happen. So if anyone has anything you'd like to say at this time, let me know, raise your hand and let me know what your thoughts are, because I do know that we had this situation happen before to a few other board members where we called them in after that second letter. Some chose not to come back, some resigned. So, but I think that should be what we're awaiting, to see whether or not she reapplies for the full board on Monday, the deadline, when it goes through. So I guess Tuesday we'll see from the borough president's office if she indeed reapplied. And then Eric, you would generate a letter just letting her know, because of her lack of attendance, that she is being asked to attend the next executive meeting to discuss possible removal.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Confirmed.
All right. Thank you so much. Now we move on to our district manager's report.
Okay, I saw Paul had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
All right. Just a quick question. Is this our first letter?
No, second.
No.
It is the second? All right. I wasn't clear on that. Copy. Thank you.
Okay, first, I'll just start with the Zoom since Larissa started the conversation. So a lot of the boards, or I'd say the Manhattan boards in general, are having the exact same problems, but most are handling it differently. And because a number of people have had these problems and they've brought it up at to the borough president's office at the January Borough Service Cabinet meeting, this was an agenda item. And they actually made a really good outline of everything that was being discussed, like webinars, chat rooms, that kind of thing. But there hasn't been any summary of it yet. And we were supposed to, even though ordinarily these meetings are not recorded because they're closed meetings, they were recording it just for our use, but we don't have the recording yet. However, there are some big takeaways, which I can tell you. One is almost all the boards use webinars, like probably over 75% of Manhattan community boards have all their meetings as webinars. It does not lose community input because you simply call on people. and they can speak. And the point Trevor made about running it like a live meeting, Adele Bartlett, who's the lawyer, was made specifically exactly that point, that everything you should do should be toward running it just like your live meeting, and you wouldn't have people having little mini meetings during the meeting the way the chat rooms have become. So all the boards either have no chat or they have it go only to the host. You do not need a webinar to do that. You can do that in either a regular meeting or a webinar. But what most of the boards are doing is they're doing webinars. They're having the chat rooms go only to the host. And then when someone sends in, they say that the chat room could be used for two things. One is for technical difficulties, and to sign in, but also to give information, to use it like a flyer table. So if someone has a link or something they want to share, they send it to the host and then the host sends it to everyone. I agree that it would resolve a lot of problems. It seems in most boards, I'm embarrassed to say this, but most boards, it seems like the staff is facilitating the meetings and doing this. So they're handling the chats and the Zoom, not all of them. So those are the two big takeaways. Chats should go only to the host and co-hosts, and that they're run as webinars. So is there anything, comments, conversation? Anisha, was
Yeah,
the first one.
Susan, if I can add to that, I know we talked about this earlier today. It would be beneficial to have the Zoom facilitator as the host. That way, any technical issues would go to the Zoom facilitator as well as anything else posting. The facilitator can then share duties with the chair, but it would be the Zoom facilitator logging in as the host.
Right, so that's true. So that is something that the chairs would need to agree to.
Susan, there's a few hands up. I see Anisha's
Yeah.
hand and Michelle's
Anisha?
hand.
Anisha?
So my only, like my experience working with webinars as someone who attends, not the person who hosts it, is the one thing that I find difficult about them is that you can't see the other people necessarily
Right.
who are on them. And I think that will be hard for the public, especially if we do want to encourage any sort of talking, whether it's good or bad, people to actually participate in the meeting. Because, some people participate when they feel comfortable and know who else is hearing it. So if, I don't know if there's an answer to that, but if there's a way that, like, whichever solution it is where we could, like, people can see who else is on the
That came up, and it is a fault of the webinars. And, I will say the great majority, much more than just the majority of boards are doing it, and people are dealing with it. And so I think what we're saying is neither way is perfect, and you just got to make a choice.
Larissa, I see your hand physically.
So Michelle, there's
Oh.
a couple other
Yeah,
couple
Larissa,
other hands, if I could go
Yeah.
in order.
Michelle's hand was up.
I
Okay.
know.
So yeah, I've gone to a bunch of other community boards at this point, and they all do webinar, even for their
Right.
committee meetings, not just their full board meetings. I know CB1 and CB2 do, just from my own personal experience. And also the city, when they do like outreach meetings, like landmarks or whatever, they also use webinar. I agree with Anisha that it sucks that Zoom does not allow you to see who's on it. But that seems, I mean, I think that there might be, not that this should hold us back from doing it, but we could suggest the VP's office as a large scale purchaser of Zoom to go to their account manager and like, just say that that's a flaw of the options. And like, because I'm sure Zoom is iterating, they're constantly iterating. So I would just make that suggestion, that you would have some sort of in-between version where you could see who's on. Because you can't even see participants if you're a participant, And I mean, we are, and the thing from a chair's perspective, the chat is so distracting and people are messaging you directly. And it's like a meeting within a meeting, which I don't even know. And I know you mentioned, Susan, that Adele or looked at it. It's like, is it even violating open meeting laws by that happening? People are DMing you and whatever. It makes it really, really, really hard to pay attention when people are having a whole other conversation. Like you would just never do that in person, so I'm in favor of the webinar, even with the flaw that you can't see it. And, we'll have to message it appropriately to people because they're going to be pissed. But, it's like it's a year in, we have learnings and yeah, we need to make it as effective as possible. So thanks.
Okay, one thing I forgot to mention, you brought up borough president's large scale purchaser. They are asking boards to look into purchasing their own account when this is up in March. One of the problems they're having is boards trying to schedule more than one meeting at a time and then all going to the borough president to use one of their meetings for a second meeting, and they don't have enough. And it's just become a problem. So they're asking us to look into this. And this is, of course, at a time when we're getting our budget cut. So that is something it'll be for the next fiscal year, something I'll have to look into. Okay, May, I see May is next. May, are you muted?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so I am very much in favor of cutting off, well, not cutting off, but having the chat box go to the facilitator or whoever it is. There is no need for people to get into the chat box at all. And I also like to mimic what is in the room. And I also have the problem with the webinar. People do go to them, but after a while, it's a combination of not being uncomfortable, for some people uncomfortable with who else is not being able to see other people. And then for some people just being burned out on Zoom. So it's like, so why should I go? Because they can't see. So but I'm willing generally to, I guess, go with what everyone is going to do. And then the other thing, I don't know if this is the time to mention it, but in my meetings, I also like to, before the meeting, go over the run of the meeting with the Zoom facilitator and the secretary, just so they know what to expect. Because it's not like being in the room when you can kind of whisper to each other a bit and pass notes to each other. It's like you have to be able to run the show when it starts. So they're both here. I don't know if they found it helpful, but I hope they did. And if they didn't, we don't have to do it anymore.
But it's a good idea for other people to consider.
Yeah, so it's something to consider if you think it's useful.
Okay. I will say, May, as far as being zoomed out, I suspect most of the public attending the meetings are not as zoomed out as you and I are.
Yeah, no, I agree. Most people are not.
Okay, Linda has her hand up. How do you do that, Linda? How do you put your hand up?
Actually, it should be Larissa and then me and then Linda.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't see Larissa. I'm sorry, I didn't see Larissa's hand.
That's okay. I'm physically raising my hand, Susan. It's okay. I don't have an option to raise my hand here.
Oh, because you're the facilitator. I thought Linda was facilitator for some reason.
Oh, that's what happened. I got made facilitator. Oh, cool.
I got it. Okay.
Okay, so extra promotion for me. So going back to what Anisha was saying, I get that it's real. The webinar is not great, and because people can't see each other, but I think we need to separate a virtual meeting from an in-person meeting because people just don't behave the same. If we were in person and people were sitting in a room, no one would be standing up and moving to the side and having these little side conversations with everyone in the room. They would be sitting and attentively listening and waiting for their turn to speak. And that's just not happening. People's behaviors are very different online and they treat the forum very differently. So unfortunately, the webinar is basically the only way, sadly, that we can have any type of control on the conversation. And not control doesn't mean limiting people. It means making sure that the people have their voice and that everyone is heard, not allowing certain people to dominate the conversation or dominate the room, and to be equitable. I think that's bottom line with the webinar. It does suck that the people can't see each other. But I think it's a small trade-off for conducting a meeting. And yes, May, I will be the first to advocate for your way of running your meeting, and your prep has been wonderful. I've really felt like we run a tight meeting. When we do our prep beforehand, the meeting goes off without a hitch. So thumbs up.
Okay, Linda?
Do we feel that all of the committees should do the same thing, or should the chair of the committee have an option regarding whether they want a webinar or just a regular meeting?
Well, here's what I would say. I'd like uniformity. I like that there is some type of cohesiveness, that we are all connected and doing the same thing. I don't like when one person is doing this and the other person is doing that, and then it gets to be a little confusing, not just for the chairperson, but also for the office and everyone around us. Because if everyone is doing their own thing, it's like, okay. I mean, this is something that I heard the complaints about last year during the election process, is that people felt like there was no uniformity. So I'd like for us to stay as uniform as possible, all being on the same page, operating in the same way. I don't know.
Yeah, as
questions?
someone who's in the minority, I say we should be uniform, period.
Yeah.
Not as possible, just be uniform. So people
Right.
know what to expect from us, no matter what meeting they go to.
Correct.
I
Thank
agree,
you, May.
but I think public's expectations are really important, and we've actually heard that from the public, that they felt the meetings, they should have the same expectations for different meetings.
Yes.
Okay, I think Trevor's next.
Trevor?
Just one question, because I don't like webinars, but I understand it, and I probably make my meetings a lot smoother, but I understand the need to see other people because you feel like you're in a meeting. What is the drawback to just having the chat go to the host? Because we're saying that is the main issue. Is there another issue that we're missing?
It's not the main issue, it's just an issue. And yes, in some meetings, people just talk out of turn all the time.
Okay, so that I didn't hear. So the other issue is people talking out of turn. It's not just the chat, it's the talking out of turn. The other thing is I was either at CB1 or CB6. They don't use Zoom at all. They use a different client. Do you know how many other community boards use a different client?
Yes, this has been discussed a lot. Everybody agrees Zoom is the most user-friendly, which is, the reason that we chose it in the first place. Board 1 used WebEx. 6, I know, use something else. Maybe about 3 out of 12 are using something else. And a lot of boards around the city are using WebEx. It is a lot harder. City uses WebEx, so I'm on WebEx meetings all the time. Zoom is a lot easier.
Jackie's hand was up, Susan.
Yeah, I know. Jackie's been calling you.
I think Linda is before me.
Oh, okay. Linda? Go back to
Linda already spoke.
Yeah, she already spoke. So, I think I'm watching the hand. I'm watching the hand. So I don't know who's the host now. Is it Larissa?
I am the host.
Okay, so Jackie, you're next. So
Okay. So I'm leaning towards more towards the just send a chat to the host than the webinar thing, because I see pros and cons for both ways, but I just like close out the chat more. But I agree with Alicia that there should be we should be uniform, and every committee should be doing the same thing. But I'm just leaning towards more the close out the chat.
Okay, Paul's next. Paul?
Yeah. So I agree with the uniform stuff. I understand the webinar issue could be icky. Why, if we're sending the chat, if the chat's supposed to be a technical issue kind of thing, and just directed to the host and sign in and attendance, why don't we incorporate a Google form to kind of to control attendance as the sign in document instead of the chat?
People, they can still use the chat. Why can't they sign in on the chat? Just because it goes to the host doesn't mean they can't sign in on it.
Well, maybe just to have something a little bit more clear if it doesn't get through,
Just to
if
get
all the
people
names
off the
don't get
chat.
through on the chat.
Right, Paul, get people off the chat generally. Is that your intent?
Yeah, maybe.
But the chat's still there, but then people can't say I'm having a technical problem. They can't share a link.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just a
as
thought.
long as it's, yeah, as long as it's going to the host, they can sign in. They can tell you if they're having a technical problem, or they could share links, and then the host can send the link out to everybody.
Okay.
Just from my experience using the chat to the host, we've eliminated a lot of issues with the chat. It's
Yeah.
typically just attendance, maybe one person, but once they realize it's not going to everyone, they don't send anything.
So Jackie's
Yeah.
hand goes down, and I think Thomas is next.
Thomas. You're on mute, Thomas.
I think that the people having access just to see each other is a very beneficial. It kind of brings the community into community board, and especially now that new people may be coming into the board, especially we're going to have hopefully some teenagers that might want to apply. It would be a little bit more engaging, and for them to get more familiar with the persons who are doing things in the community. And I know I myself, when the discussions were going on about 100 Orchard Street, I found it beneficial to see the faces of the people who had a vested interest and articulated, their concerns regarding that issue at our committee. So I think, there are options on Zoom to mute everybody if it got out of order. And maybe there could even be something that we could incorporate, maybe a small kind of a training, just to have somebody at each committee who could be that person to mute when somebody's not following parliamentary rules. But I think it is beneficial to see everybody. Just wanted to say that.
Okay,
Thank you,
Michelle.
Thomas.
Jackie, your hand's down now, right?
Michelle's hand is up, Susan.
Yeah, I know. I just want to make sure that Jackie.
Jackie hasn't spoken yet, has he?
Jackie's hand is
Oh,
still
no.
up.
I'm trying to lower my hand. I just
Okay.
having
Okay.
technical
Would
problem.
you like me to do that for you?
Yeah, and if you could do that for everyone, it would be
There.
helpful. If you could do that for everyone, it would be helpful.
Okay, so I think I've thought about it a little bit more. A couple of things. I don't feel like we need to do the webinar because I don't think the main problem is people jumping in out of turn verbally. Although they might start doing that if we shut down the chat, so we'd have to be willing to iterate. But if we make the policy choice that every single committee is going to have the chat going directly to the host from the very beginning, so that we don't need to say, if you children don't behave, we're gonna stop the chat, and just setting that expectation
Yes.
from the very beginning. And then Tariq wrote in the chat that there's a way to make it so that people can't unmute themselves. If that's a way, if there's an option for that, that only the hosts can unmute them, that could be a good way to
Yeah,
mitigate
you
any
can
jump
mute
in.
everyone, yes.
Well, I think in a webinar, they can't pop up.
No, but not, sorry, I'm talking about in a
No,
regular.
we're
meeting.
talking
Is
about
there-
just the meeting, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is there a way to make it so that people can't unmute themselves without asking to be unmuted? I'm still not sure what that pop-up is, the host is asking you to unmute. Is that a setting that we chose, or sometimes just happens randomly? But that would be my suggestion. And then I like Paul's idea about having attendance generally to get the Zoom link. A lot of the other Zoom meetings I've had to do, it's something is built into Zoom actually, that you have to sign up to get the link. And I think Paul, when I was hearing Paul say that and I just jumped in, was it would just also make the chat less part of the experience. So maybe they would feel less like they need to use it at all. But they would still have the option to use it for like technical difficulties or whatever. But just like kind of removing the chat as like a main source of communication generally, having the sign up would be easy, and that would be good for attendance too. So I'm recanting my support for webinar if we can all agree to do chat to go to host from the very beginning, and that's clearly, you know, stated on our rules. And also if there's a way to look for people can't unmute themselves.
I could just say about the registration, I think one thing to think about is having that extra step, which a lot of people aren't going to do. It just seems to me to make it meeting a little bit less accessible and inviting to have to register ahead of time. I mean, I do it for my district service cabinet meeting, but that's because I don't want anyone in there who I haven't allowed to register, and which is not the intent of our committee meetings. So it's just something to think about. Okay, I think Jackie's next.
Yeah, so I just want to go back to Michelle's point. I think Zoom has a function to limit people's ability to unmute themselves. I do believe they have such a function. So, I mean, right? Yeah. So I think there is such a function. We can look into that.
Tariq is giving guidance. He's our resident.
Yeah, I saw.
You know,
maybe we can move him over to give instructions. Would that be worthwhile?
Pardon?
Would it be worthwhile to move Tariq over so he can explain it to us?
Sure.
I'm sorry, what do you want to do?
Move Tariq to panelist so he can tell us how to do this.
No, we don't normally take. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's normally just the executive, but I mean, I do see his comments there, and what he's basically saying is the same thing that was just said, is basically muting everyone, and then allowing them to unmute themselves, but making sure everyone is gets an opportunity after they're in the chat. Only the host will see the chat room, right? Then no one else will see the chat. So it will only be the host that can direct the person from mute to unmute at that point. Is that what he's saying?
Well, I just kind of want to ask him if we could let him just.
Okay, go ahead.
Allow him to speak. There we go.
He's going to say sending an email.
Unmute yourself, Tariq. There you go.
Well, we can also look on Zoom frequently asked questions. They have a lot of great guidance on there. And we can see if that feature will allow us to keep people muted and only allow certain people to unmute. I don't believe that we can keep everyone muted. I think we can mute, I think.
Well,
and I'll double check this on the Zoom website. That we
No, I've been muted through.
I believe
I've been on months where I've not been allowed to speak on a lot of.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that setting is.
You go into the chat. And once you click into the chat where the participants are as well, you will just say mute everyone, right? So that's going to give everybody mute. So then the chair, whoever is speaking or leading the meeting, will then unmute. You know, they will be able to unmute themselves. You will still have the same process. You know, we do this in kind of a lot of my meetings and in the organization and other kind of councils that I sit on, but pretty much where everybody's muted, and then we just use the same process that the board uses in raising their hand, and then the host has the option to say, just like in order, okay, Trevor's speaking, okay, Michelle's going to speak, and then the host just unmutes Trevor when it's his time to speak. He goes back to mute, then the next person, then the next person. So there is that option, and I think I heard Susan say, you know, there was the thing of not the chat not being the only problem, but then people speaking out of turn. So then the muting everyone will solve that problem.
Okay, thank you, Tariq.
If I could suggest, you don't have to make up your mind for, I mean, you could decide to try one way for a month and see how it works.
This is the second time we've talked about it. I think we should make a decision.
This is not the first time we've discussed this, and I think tonight needs to be a finalization as to what we're going to do moving forward, because we're already going into March, and then we'll be looking into whether we're going to go back to converting into going live again. So maybe we should take a vote. Yeah, maybe take a poll. Let's take a poll. Vote. You know,
We have to kind of figure out what we're voting on. though.
Yeah, what are you voting on?
whether we're gonna become webinar or stay the same and then have everyone muted. I mean, let's get a language here. I don't have the language. Let me develop a language really quickly.
Alicia, you mind if I jump in? Just say yes or no to webinar.
Yeah, that's a good, I mean,
exactly.
it's not
Yeah,
something
because I
that's
make
going
a
to the
motion that
board.
we move to a webinar.
Yeah, it's a yes and no. That's it. So, everyone individually
So,
can't do by a show
well,
of
Alicia,
hands.
I
'cause
did make
Go
a
ahead.
motion that we move to webinar. If we could vote on that, that would might be
I
way to do
second.
it. Okay, we have a move. We have a
Okay, so there's a
motion and a
motion.
second to accept.
So Shirley
And it was
should,
the,
Shirley should.
so,
So do you want me
okay. Yes, please. Thank you, Shirley.
to, okay, so members vote to move to webinar?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we're voting on whether, on yes means we're moving to webinar, no means we're staying with Zoom, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Alicia.
Oh, may I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So if we're using, it's a webinar or it is the Zoom meeting with no chat box and we can just mute everyone, is that correct?
I
we'll
think if we
limit the
decide to
chat
stay with
box.
the meeting, we can then define
Wait.
the rules for that.
Okay.
Why don't you make that a separate vote?
Yeah.
So
Because
wait,
no
so
chat box is a big deal.
so wait, so one vote is members vote to move to webinar, the other vote is members move to stay with Zoom, but eliminate the chat box?
Well, you
do
can't
just
eliminate it still, but
webinar
you
right
put
now.
it, you have the chat box
Wait,
go to
wait,
facilitator.
wait a minute. There's too many people speaking all at once and it's getting all jumbled up. Larissa, you have a lag in your
Oh, sorry.
computer speed. I don't know what's going on, but
Yeah.
I'm hearing you after the fact. So,
I have an unstable connection.
okay. Okay. So,
So my motion that's on the floor is to move to webinar. So that's the motion on the floor right now.
So Shirley's taking that vote.
Okay, all right. So Alicia Lewis Coleman,
yes.
Larissa Shainberg,
Yes.
Eric Diaz,
Where did Eric go?
Eric,
Go ahead, pass Eric. We can come back to
okay.
him.
Shirley Fennessy, no. Thomas Rosa,
No.
Michelle Cooper Smith,
No.
Anisha Stephen,
No.
Oh,
Mei Lee,
No,
Jackie Wong,
No.
Linda Jones,
yes.
Michelle Cooper Smith,
I'm on the vote sheet twice because I'm still there for.
there you go. Can you vote twice? No. Okay, I'll take you off. Trevor Holland
No.
and Paul Rankle.
No.
Okay, that was decisive.
Okay.
And so it looks like we have, hold on. 1, 2. We have 3 yeses and 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 no's and 3 yeses.
Okay, so it looks like we're going to stay with regular Zoom, but that being said, we stay with regular Zoom and we go with the idea of what Tariq just shared. We will be muting people after the attendance is called. People will be all muted until it's time for them to speak. So the host will have a more in-depth function with the Zoom responsibilities. Okay, so just make that very clear. And Larissa, I think you will need to send an email to everyone that helps you with the Zoom, the hosts, and just make them all aware that this is what we're going to be doing from moving forward. Okay.
Okay, so there's a couple of hands up, but first I would suggest maybe at full board that you let everybody know this is happening too.
Yes.
Okay, Michelle, Her hand went down.
Sorry,
Larissa?
I clicked hand
Okay.
down instead of unmute by accident. Sorry. So I just want to be clear that we are going though to amend the instructions that we put on our screens to say that the chat will only go to the Zoom host. And the chat is only, so that will be amended to that, right, from the very beginning, so that it's a clearly, communicated expectation for them. So who is going to do that? Who's going to make sure that every committee has the same instructions?
That would be Larissa, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Larissa. And also include the fact about the muting, that the host will mute everyone after the attendance is taken and will unmute as needed. Just so everyone knows.
Yeah, no, it's good to.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good recap, Michelle. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Trevor, Trevor's hand. Okay, I see Larissa, Trevor.
Larissa's
Okay.
next.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just going to emphasize the same thing, that we should make sure everyone's aware that oh, I'm sorry. I needed to add one other thing, that the Zoom facilitator, we need to make sure that that is understood. The Zoom facilitator needs to be the host instead of
Right.
the chair. So that I'm going to add that language as well.
But not the instructions for the public, right? That's just internal. Yeah. Okay, Trevor?
There's two things. First, are we going to vote on that provision we're talking about? And number two, when it comes to muting everybody, are we also muting our committee members?
I think you have to. If you're having a regular meeting, you have to mute everyone, don't you?
Yes, I'm just asking because I think that needs to be explained to committee members.
Yeah, that's
but
the drawback.
Before we get to that point, is everyone in agreement with doing the mute and the chat to the host or the committee, the chair and the Zoom facilitator?
And this is a motion for a vote. I second.
Yeah, Trevor, are you making the motion for that?
No, I'm still in discussion because I'm trying to figure out, we're all talking about it, but is there any more discussion about it? Because I think we need to be clear about what we're talking about.
Yeah, if you're going to have a meeting as opposed to a webinar, then you're doing it to everybody. If you have a webinar, you don't have to mute the panelists, but you're choosing the meeting option, which means you're muting everybody or you're muting no one, right?
Okay.
You can do it one at a time.
Pardon?
You can do it one at a time, and I have done it.
Oh, so there is. So you can't.
Yeah, you have to go pick them. You have to find them and pick them out and mute them.
But you can just pick out just the committee members and just unmute them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Or if there's one noisy person, you can go after that person and mute them.
But that becomes,
No. Sometimes you have background noise. That's like that. Anyway, so the technologies, you can do all or one or any number that you want.
So I think it's giving forth the option of going in and individually unmuting the committee members.
Or could you just make us all panelists? Like, is there a way that we can just sign in and be
No,
panelists?
that's a webinar.
We just reject.
okay.
That's the trade-off.
That's the webinar that you don't want to have.
Yeah, that's the trade-off with the webinar. The panelists are not going to be muted, but the public will be. But when you have a meeting, it's all or nothing. But like May said, we can selectively unmute the committee members. The other option is to have the committee members raise their hand when they want to speak, which if you're a small committee, if you have a short agenda, it could be easy to do.
Okay, I want to, Susan, I'm sorry. I just want to give this like maybe 2 more minutes and then we really need to move on for the sake of time. It's already going to be 7:30.
Okay, so we have Linda and then Trevor.
Okay.
Briefly, it is just good practice for everyone to be muted all the time unless they're speaking, because inevitably background noise creeps in and distracts people. So I don't think people will mind if they start the meeting muted, and I would never unmute my whole committee. I'm going to ask them to unmute when they wish to speak, when they raise their hand. That's it.
Okay, no other hands up now?
Trevor's hand was still up. Trevor, did you have something else
So
you
I
needed
took
to
my
say?
hand down. I took my
Okay.
hand down.
All
So
right,
are we
so
voting?
now, go
Sorry.
ahead, Susan, I'm sorry.
No,
No,
I'm
it's
not.
Shirley.
It's like, so what is it that you're
So,
going to be
so
doing?
now the motion is so that we are all on the same page, that everyone will be muted. And then the host will unmute people at will, right? Am I correct? Is that where we're at?
Yes, yes.
Do we need to take a vote on this, everyone? Or are we all in agreement?
It sounds like nobody agrees.
Nobody agrees. Okay.
Nobody's speaking up.
I agree.
Does everybody agree?
I agree. I agree.
Agree.
Does anyone disagree?
No, I agree, except you can't unmute them, but that's the technology. Sorry.
Okay, so it sounds like Larissa might have some work with instructions to people on how to do all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Larissa,
have to
I think
send
you
that an
should.
email to all the facilitators.
Yeah. Thing I'm gonna ask you to do is send us all the language before you present it next week at full board. Yeah, please send us the language so we can actually, make sure. Okay, thank you. Susan?
Okay, so one more thing about Zoom, you mentioned the blended meetings. So the only thing we can decide to do or not do right now is to advocate for blended meetings, and the board probably should take a position on this. As long as right now there's an executive order that allows us to deviate from the open meeting law. Once that executive order expires, you have no choice. You cannot have a blended meeting unless the open meeting law is changed. So a lot of the boards want to advocate. They're saying, in order to take advantage of modern technology, open meetings law should allow blended meetings. So the board can decide to advocate for that. You can plan for it in the hopes that it will happen, because I think a lot of people are expecting it to, but people should be aware, we can't make any decisions. Only the state would have to amend their open meeting law. So going to my report. I have a first huge thing to ask everybody. It doesn't involve everybody, but it involves a lot. Please answer your emails to the office. We just can't do our work. Shirley, please answer Ed's email.
Okay, sorry.
He's been asking for you to return the, and I'm sorry, it's just that you were the last person.
That's fine. I just got it today. I didn't see one before today, but I'll deal with it. I saw it today before meeting.
But he's been asking he asked in January to have the minutes returned February 10th.
Oh, I thought I returned everything. Okay, thank you.
Okay. The other thing, and I think this is part of why you had a problem, is I would like to ask the board, whenever you have a new person taking over a position, please have the old person really work with them, because there's a lot to it. As always, when you sit down and think about everything you do, there's a lot more to it. It isn't, for instance, for secretary, it's not just taking the minutes, that's just the most obvious part, but the procedure, what you do with them when, and that's true of every position. So, I think that's something the board should be doing automatically. And just about vacant treasurer position, just coincidentally, the 12 boards, the DMs have been emailing back and forth like, what does your board do with the treasurer? What does their board do? One board has no treasurer, and it just varies, and everybody agrees that it's absolutely no work whatsoever. I had asked last time, and I don't think it happened, please let the treasurer know that there really isn't anything to do. The positions were made before there was a financial management system online, which now does almost everything a treasurer used to do. So just a comment about that. I always feel bad for the person who's treasurer. Another thing, I'm just giving you a few housekeeping things this time, and that's it. please include Jim and me on all emails regarding agendas, resolutions, and invites, because we kind of do everything together. And I'm assuming if I don't do something, that he will do it. So it's just very helpful. So I want to ask for your help on that. And just sort of an FYI, I wanted to explain our process with the agenda and invites, just so it makes more sense to people. We have template agendas, our calendars set up for the rest of the year. And sometimes when we're doing our job properly, we'll put something on for like 2 months ahead or 3 months ahead if we know that that's going to happen. If we can, we will invite people a month early and put something on the schedule for a month early. We certainly hope to be able to give you a list as early as possible so you can plan your meeting and know whether to invite, have more items or not. We keep a special invite list. So for every item, and this is so that Jim and I can work together, and we doing it on Google Drive right now. We put down who's invited, whether they've been confirmed, so that, we both have that information. But that's why we always need that information. So again, it's like, if you're doing some of the stuff like, I think May does this particularly well. Whenever she's inviting someone, she always has us on the email. So, and we do the same with her. So we're always kind of in the loop and not duplicating each other's work or not knowing what's going on. Deidre, a week before the meeting, will send the leadership of the committee the template agenda and all the information about who's been invited. And you can, if you think somebody's been left off or there's something wrong, please let us know. That's why we're sending you the information. The template's also designed to be able to help the chair kind of walk through the items, like the roll call and that sort of thing. One thing I noticed that sometimes chairs are waiting to see how many members are there. Our bylaws actually say to take attendance in the beginning. It's not like city council where you wait to see if there's a quorum, which used to be, a couple of years ago, used to be a process. And, some of the committees have started talking about goals, and I think we need a process on how to deal with them. What we're going to do with them. They should all be within the next month or two if you're going to, say, at the end of the year, see how you did. But we've got to find out, maybe put this on the agenda for the next exec to discuss the goals and, what to do with them or how to enact them. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Susan.
Okay.
Put it
there's
on
no
March's
question-
agenda.
If there's no questions, I took up a lot of time already, so.
Thank you, Susan. Okay. let's go
And
back.
Shirley, I didn't mean to be calling you out. You are not
It's
the
fine.
only person.
It's fine. I'm overwhelmed and I didn't see it and I apologize. It's
No,
totally
don't. This is, if
No,
it were,
I get it.
believe me, if it weren't a broader problem, I never would have brought it up.
It's fine. No problem. It's not personal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Susan, and thank you everyone for that very hearty discussion about fixing our Zoom issues. Okay, now we're going to go into this special election. So as mentioned earlier, Larissa mentioned earlier, Thomas was the only one that responded to the secretarial vacancy. So that being said, I believe now we can go ahead and print the ballot, Susan, or not print the ballot,
We don't
but
print ballots
I
anymore.
mean, not print the ballot, but now we can, make the announcement at full board. And so I think what happened.
You're voting at full board.
Yeah, we'll be voting at full board. So the nominations are closed. So Thomas is the only one that responded. And so therefore, he will be the one that we'll be voting on for Tuesday night. Now, I think what came up the last time I was told is that for people that do a call-in vote, we have to figure out, I think it was Susan, you brought this up, right?
This
That-
also came up at the Borough Service. They talked
Yeah.
about elections under the Zoom issues, and I brought up that, we had at least one person call in, which turned out other boards did too. What you need to do is when somebody calls it in and that person is then marking that vote down, they have to have a video of that to prove it.
Mhm. So, yeah, so since Paul is the one that did our last election so nicely, Paul, can we figure out a way how that's going to look? How are we going to instruct the public? I mean, not the public, the board members on how this is going to work?
Well, the first one was free. Second time, you're gonna have this will be a little bit easier since it's just one person. I don't think we had an, if I'm, Linda, maybe you can refresh my memory. I don't think anybody actually called in. What I had everybody do
Had a phone
was,
number.
we had a
Normally,
phone number, but I didn't
David
take a vote
Adams
via
normally
phone.
calls
Mr.
in.
Adams generally calls in.
Yeah,
calls in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right,
Yep.
but I didn't, but I have them email the vote. If there's an issue, I have them email me directly. Is that gonna be a
You're not
problem?
allowed- You're not allowed to email votes.
Didn't we do a Google form for the votes?
No,
For
but I'm,
people that don't use it.
Oh, God, sorry.
Can I make a suggestion? To keep it as simple as possible. Since there's only probably one person calling, and only one person running, give Paul's phone number, have him call. When Paul writes it down, just take a video of yourself on your phone.
Sure. I can't, I'm not, I don't see it on here. Are there breakout rooms for the host?
What?
Are there breakout rooms on this format for the
We
full board
can,
meeting?
we can have separate rooms.
It's allowed, yeah.
So how about for anybody who has an issue logging in to the Google form, I just go into a breakout room with them and they can give me their vote that way.
And then that would be recorded.
Yeah, because it will be recorded on Zoom because they're in the breakout rooms, you're still being recorded.
Sure about
So
that?
let me ask you that one thing though. So when we post the video on the website, everybody's going to know, have that video of how that one person voted.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like.
So I guess I'll videotape myself with getting the phone call for vote.
Yeah, just,
If-
video, you're marking the ballot, that's all.
All right, not a problem.
And if anybody foils it,
Would you like, I'm getting the-
Oh, my goodness.
I'll make it work.
The wonderful world of foil.
I'll make it work and it'll look similar to the way I did the November election, except it's just gonna be Thomas's name and or abstain. It'll look the same exactly.
Or you could buy David Adams a laptop.
I don't even know if David has internet.
Yeah,
I would give him a laptop if I knew he had internet because I have an old one.
he has email.
Yeah, he has email. That could be on cell phone.
That's
Right.
That's
Yep.
Or library.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. And so then we'll make the announcement on Tuesday night for the open position for the treasurer. Okay. Now
And
we'll
then
go.
When you make the announcement, please give a date right then about when they have to submit their nominations.
Yeah. Okay. We're not going to linger it. I give everybody like a week or two. I normally give like a week. So I'll pick a date. I'll make sure I have a date ready for Tuesday night.
And that they're going to Larissa.
Yeah. Larissa, are you going to be the point person again? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I will be.
Thank you. Okay, so Larissa will come up with a date for March for treasurer. Okay. All righty. Now we'll go into our reports, committee reports. SLA, Michelle.
Nothing really to report, except for I climbed on a roof up a straight ladder to check out a potential roof deck. It's very exciting.
You did a walkthrough.
That's one way to describe it. Yeah, a climb up, I guess. But yes, the meeting ran more smoothly this month, which was great. So thanks to everyone who has been attending.
Awesome.
Yeah, and thank you to Larissa for being my Zoom master.
Happy to facilitate my.
Very nice. Parks, Trevor.
Thanks to Jackie for being the Zoom facilitator at the last minute for this, and also thank to Linda for volunteering. We were missing 3 or 4 people from this meeting, but overall it went smoothly. So I appreciate the emails that went out from Larissa and the CB3 office. A couple of things. We did pass a resolution that had to do with the signage or the resiliency signage in East River Park. We had asked for this, I think about 2 years ago. So they came to us for a design. These are just signs that will go at various points in the East River and in the CB6 area that will sort of explain the components of the project. We spent a lot of time on it last month talking about font size and colors, but we managed to get a resolution that everyone could agree with. We also, the ESCR team also appeared to talk about the now infamous value engineering study, which they had an explanation of. I haven't read all 334 pages minus the redactions, but it did not appear like it would reach a level of where we would change a resolution that we had passed. I will look at it further, but most of the stuff that was in there really talked about the Con Edison lines and other reasons as to why they were even having the discussion in the first place. There's some detail on that is in the actual report in the EIS, but they seem to have a pretty good explanation of the issues that were around the value engineering report or study, however you want to call it. We did talk about committee goals in our discussion afterwards, and had mainly to do with shortening our meetings and having less on the agenda and trying to control people speaking, not so much from the public, but from the committee. But that's on me, because I'm apparently not mean enough. And the ESCR team we're going to try and move into a bi-monthly, once every 2 or 3 months, as opposed to coming every month, because what happens is we talk about the same thing every month because they're there and the same discussion happens for about an hour. So we only want them when they have substantial updates, and we need to focus on other items that are going on in our neighborhood that were sort of neglected. So we will not see them every month. That's about it.
Trevor, are you using the when we did the training, are you going to use the 2-minute timer? I know sometimes it's like you don't want to do it, or telling someone that has already spoken to allow another person to speak before the person that spoke already speaks again. Let's not forget the training that we did, and to try and make sure people are honoring the rules that you have in place. Committee members, sometimes they forget.
I do, but as with most committees, there are usually 2 or 3 people who talk the most, and sometimes you get a lot of information from that. That's just the way it is. And there are quiet members who don't speak at all, and it's sometimes difficult to encourage those members to speak. That was one of the other committee goals, is to make sure we get participation, because there are some members of my committee who do not speak at all at any meeting. And I've talked with them privately and in public, and I often wonder, well, I'm not going to say that. It's just difficult to get them to speak. So, but I hear you about the training. I imagine this happens at every committee, and I think we'll get better at it, but it's just a challenge with a couple of committee members.
I understand. All right, I think that just continually go over, like, your expectation is that everyone gets like 2 minutes before they take up the time. And then, what happens, I know for me, I tend to shy away when someone is doing all of the talking. I shy away and I don't speak. So that might happen for others as well. But thank you, Trevor.
Could I ask, Larissa and I actually were talking about this. One or more of the committees has a small clock. Does anyone know who that is?
Thanks, Susan. I was just about to ask that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, let me ask this before you get to the small clock. Do you time your committee members also?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what committees do use a clock?
For committee members.
Well, first of all, I just want to know what committees use clocks. So
I use a clock. I use a clock if I think we're going to need it. Yes, I use it.
So it's not a small one though?
Michael runs a meeting, so it's a clock that goes up on the shared screen.
It's the large one, the one that I use with the blue and with the green and the yellow and the red, right?
We'll just have to take a peek at all the meetings and see who uses a small clock. Because it's less, and that way you can time them with it being less intrusive. It's like you were just talking about, people want to see the committee member, they want to see people. Well, they sometimes get upset when the whole screen is taken up with the clock.
Okay, so I see some hands. Jackie's hand is up and Paul's hand is up.
Yes, so I went to a community board one land use meeting before the pandemic, and I actually went with Alicia. So I think what they did was very effective and efficient. The topic was the jail, the ball-based detention center. So it's a very complicated issue. However, each committee member were assigned only 2 minutes. So like for such a complicated process, debate, they were able to conduct a meeting very effectively and efficiently. So I think I'm actually leaning towards having the 2 minutes clock thing. However, if we are doing that, I think I just like all the committees to be uniform. So if we are doing this in one committee, other committees should be doing the same thing. And I think that's a good idea. But it's also up to the exec.
No, Jackie, I think that's something that we did talk about at the last training that we had for the exec. That was discussed, because what happens, again, people will take up as much time as you allow. And that includes your full board members. Yes, you might need to discuss something a little lengthy. You might need a little more time, but how about if you take up 10 minutes with what you have to say, then another board member is not going to get an opportunity to even give like a minute of what they have to say, because they're not going to, they just won't speak because someone else is taking up all of the time.
And also, if everyone is given only 2 minutes, so they will consolidate their ideas and just talk about the important points instead of talking about their own feeling, their life experience. So I just feel like that.
Just a couple of things on that, though. The training that we had was obviously before the pandemic, and we're talking about instituting rules to sort of make the meetings more efficient, although people may see that a little differently. So if we're going to now say chat goes here, no, everyone's muted, and also restrict everyone to 2 minutes, I'm not sure how that perception is going to play out. So I think we should discuss it. I think everyone does a pretty good job. It's going to happen, but I'm a little nervous of also instituting a 2-minute rule on committee members, especially if we don't have a controversial topic. I mean,
well, I hear exactly what you're saying, Trevor. And what I would also suggest is that, most of the time, I notice that, when it's a heavy agenda item, I see that some chairs are sending out, what the agenda items are. They're putting out, this is the resolution we're going to look at tonight. There are other chairs that, may say, if you'd like to submit something, now is the time, do it before the meeting so that when we get to the meeting, it's not this overwhelming amount of response. And so people can then say, well, Trevor, I have a comment that I'd like to add, or I'd like a, a question, and maybe you can, have it ready, and you could maybe suggest that so they don't feel like they're being muted at all, that you are listening to them. And, what do you think? I mean, I don't.
Well, I want to, since I'm over my 2 minutes and I see Jackie, Paul, and May raise their hand, I'm going to end my report by saying this because I don't want to stay on Parks Board front resiliency, is that I hear you, but as public members and committee members go to these meetings, they want to speak that same thing in front of everyone. You can submit it all you want. They want their time in front of everyone. But that's the end of my report. So we can ask questions about or talk about that in general, but that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Trevor. Paul, I saw your hand, and then Jackie, you had another question?
May has her hand up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't time committee members. So I don't like putting the 2-minute clock on the community. That's a different story. We put that 2-minute clock up. But when committee members, I won't time. That's something we've been and the committee is pretty good in terms of respecting each other's time.
Your committee is unusual.
Yeah, your committee, Paul, is relatively respectful of each other. Okay, Maylee, and then Jackie again. Or Jackie, you're done. Maylee.
Well, my committee has also been pretty decent about the time, although not the chat box, but so they don't go on and on and on. And as far as members of the public are concerned, I always tell them, like, we have this controversial thing about that whole Orchard Street safe haven, and I tell them to ask a question. And they're into formulating questions. So questions take less time. So it's usually not that long. And I'm watching the clock. I mean, the clock on the computer, and I sometimes cut them off.
Susan, I saw
but there is no clock up there.
If I could just say, it made me realize after listening to the chairs what I've observed. And there's to be honest, there's a big difference in the way chairs chair the meetings and kind of whether you corral people or not.
I also, if I see people like saying the same stuff at one after the other, I then say, you can only speak if you have something new to say. And sometimes I see some hands go down.
Yeah, and that, I think that is a part of the training that we took at the executive training the last time when the instructor told us that is a very good way of limiting, people that go on and on and on, because what happens is people, like Trevor said, they get on a soapbox, they want to be heard, and they just go off on a tangent. And that's not fair to everyone that's sitting there. And you'll see your meetings run longer than necessary because someone has to have a moment to shine, and that's not fair. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments before we move on to the next report? I'm sorry, I saw a hand.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just want to clarify that. So the 2 minutes limitation is actually a policy, right? So whether we have the clock is an enforcement issue, but the 2 minutes limitation is a general policy or not? I just want to clarify that.
It's never been made a policy.
Okay.
We never made it a policy, but it was suggested that we utilize it across the board. That if we all did it, if we all participated in that type of behavior, and let our committee members know that this is the expectation, is that you please try not to go more than 2 minutes over the time with your comment or your question, then maybe, maybe not make it a policy, but maybe make it a suggestion that this is what we're going to try to do. I mean, it's a goal, right? It's something that you could say to your committee members as a opportunity to create that goal. Trevor, I don't want to put you out there like that. So I know, I know the difficulty that you have on your committee, because you have a lot of committee members that are very opinionated. So, okay. Let's see, who else there? Are there any other hands? Let me see. No, no other hands. Okay. So now we're going to move on to transportation.
Sorry. Just two things, two resolutions that are passed. We had that one joint committee item with May's Committee of Human Services. It was about the exonerated 5 in support of CB10 and their project of that exhibit that's going to go up. So I know that was the borough president asked all the boards, right? Is that correct, Susan? That that the borough president asked all the boards to put this on their agendas, and we did so in joint fashion with May's Committee. We passed that resolution, and then we had a very long resolution that was kind of chopped through really quickly and really efficiently. It was a wonderful resolution put together by Susan and Jim, based off of the open restaurants town hall and the complaints that have been coming to the office, and anything that's revolving around open restaurants and open streets restaurants programs. We put a resolution together. It was really well done, and not that many changes had to be made to it. I mean, it is a lengthy resolution, but it covered pretty much everything we had been talking about. And now I think going forward, we're going to start breaking pieces off of what that resolution is about and turn those into smaller agenda items going forward. But that's it for transportation for this month. I'll take any questions. If not, thank you.
Let me see if there's any hands, Paul.
I don't see any.
Okay. I don't see any hands either. All right. Thank you, Paul. Next, we have economic development. Anisha.
We didn't have any resolutions this month. It was more of a planning sort of meeting. We talked about further support for small businesses, and then also besides small businesses, who and what sort of interventions we'd like the city to take. So all in all, I think we sort of set an agenda for what is to come next for the next few months.
Let me see if there are any hands. I don't see any hands. Okay. Thank you, Anisha.
Can I ask one question? This is for, we haven't gotten to land use, but for Jackie, did your small property owner event happen already?
No, it is going to be next week. I am going to report about that at my committee report.
Okay. We're in economic development. We talked a little bit about the eviction moratorium, more for commercial, not residential.
Yeah, I was at your meeting as well, okay, so I'm fully
right.
aware of what people.
So maybe there's some synergy there for us to talk about.
So we just got the flyers today. We should put those on the website since it's a CB3 meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anisha. Okay. Next, we have Health and Human Services. May.
Yeah, so we at last month's meeting, we don't have any resolutions to vote on. However, the Safe Haven at 100 Orchard Street at the old Blue Moon Hotel was put back on the agenda from January because in January, the service provider who would be running the Safe Haven wasn't there. So they came in February along with, the leadership team or, various staff members from DHS. And so just to review the intention, of DHS is like in the long term is to have a Safe Haven facility there. But they would start off with a stabilization beds facility, I guess for a few months, or I'm not sure for how long, but the long-term plan is to have the Safe Haven. So that's what was on the agenda. So then they got there, and that's not really what they talked about. They mainly talked about the stabilization beds, the shorter thing. So anyway, the whole thing is supposed to have opened this week. I mean, I haven't been by there. I don't know what's going on, but so a presentation was given, and I would say there's still a lot of questions to be answered, and which we will, they didn't quite answer all the questions that we emailed them, we have to follow up.
Which I've been trying
That's
to
all
do
I have
for
to
2
say.
days.
Is that it? Is that how to sum it up?
Okay, any questions for Maylee? I don't see any hands. Okay, sorry, I don't see any hands, May.
Okay, no
All
problem.
right, thank you. Okay, land use, Jackie?
I have a slightly longer report. So we had a meeting on Tuesday, and we also didn't pass any result. So DCAS came to present the 70 Mulberry Street updates. Right now, they are doing a preservation assessment, and will release the information, the findings, when it is completed. They didn't give us a date yet. And on Corey Johnson's comprehensive planning, so the committee members like the idea in general, but they have a lot of questions, such as a lack of resources for community board, the power structure, whether the plan will make the land use applications more simplified or complicated in political support, and etc. So we're gonna create a list of comments in March land use meeting, so that it would give enough time for committee members to just think about it and digest the information we have. And another thing is that next week we're gonna have a small property zoners resources fair, like Anisha mentioned a little bit earlier. I will send out the invites tonight. I'll also send it to Anisha so you can share with your committee members. And the week following that will be our tenants resources fair. I mean, the flyer just came out today, so we're gonna like send out a bunch of invites as soon as possible. And there's another thing that I need to share with you is about the two bridges. So the court just made a ruling on Tuesday in favor of the developers. So right now, there's no injunction in place at all, and the developers can reach out to DOB for development like tomorrow. So unless the plaintiff take it to the appeal court, otherwise our rezoning plan is really the only thing right now to protect the neighborhood. And about the rezoning plan itself, DCP just replied to our application, I think it's like 2 weeks ago. And one of the questions they raised is about a hospital special permit. So I need to spend a little bit of time on that. So the area is zoned for hospitals, but we are asking them to put a special permit on top of the underlying zoning. So future hospital development will be subject to DCP review to make sure that there's sufficient parking and will not impair neighborhood characters and etc. However, right now the co-applicants are leaning towards just removing this part than spending the time to argue with DCP. There's an urgency to revise this rezoning application right now because, like I said before, there's no protection in place. So the co-applicants are asking us if we can make a decision to remove that hospital special permit requirement before our March meeting. So I don't have problem with that because this is really minor change. It's just that I don't think it rises to the level that we need another board approval, but for transparency purpose, I just want to bring it up tonight. But if the exec feel like we better go through land use and full board, I think the co-applicants would also understand that. And I guess that's all I have. And I don't know, Trevor, you have anything to add on that or you have any questions?
I would just add that right now it is zoned to allow hospitals. The underlying question is adding a layer of a special permit. So we'd like to remove the special permit because they can already build a hospital. It would not stop them from building a hospital. Not that that would be built, but it's just one of those technical things that they're asking about. I see Susan.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify. So what we're deciding, what Jackie's saying and what we're deciding, because it would impact the agenda, what we're saying is removing this so that the co-applicants can start tomorrow to revise the application does not rise to the level of putting on the agenda because it would not substantially change anything. I just wanted to clarify that that's what we're saying. Is that correct?
That is correct. And there is also an urgency to do that now than waiting until our March land use meeting to review that and then go to the full board, because like right now, if the developers wants to go to DOB tomorrow, they can do that. So, I mean, unless the community organization appeal to higher court, but that is, I mean, there's a lot of moving factors, but from our own part, I mean, the co-applicants is looking for fast movement, fast response.
If I could just kind of say, the main point is, this is a very minor thing that's not going to change the zoning that we voted on. And so therefore, it's just something we can participate in. And I would say if no one disagrees, then that would be the situation.
Let me see. I don't see hands.
Okay. I mean, it shouldn't be a problem. It's just that we, like Jackie said, he wanted transparency, and I just want to be clear on what we're doing.
Okay. Right, thank you. All right, next, sorry. Landmarks.
We did not meet.
Thank you. So now we're going to go into the task force subcommittee. So NYCHA Section 8 subcommittee did not meet, so we'll go into arts. Anisha?
Sure, thank you. So we did meet this month. This is our first meeting sort of in a planning phase to figure out the direction of the subcommittee and also think about ideas for the next leadership of that committee. So all of the committee members who were in attendance, we sort of looked at what other community boards had in terms of arts and culture. Many of them don't even have arts and culture committees. And then sort of brainstormed what we wanted this committee to be. I thought it was pretty good conversation overall. Sort of the major themes that we came to were that people really felt that there was enough to be a full committee and not just a subcommittee, or that's what the subcommittee felt. That they wanted to strengthen the community board and that committee's relationships with a diverse group of artists and cultural organizations, and also the many agencies that sort of touch the arts community, city agencies that touch the arts community, and also to sort of refocus as a convener to discuss and advocate for city support and changes to the arts and culture sector, which hasn't always been the case. So a lot of these things are sort of typical community board things, but I think it was just sort of a space for us to sort of refocus the committee and just make sure that everybody felt like they were on the same page. So there still were a ton of, different ideas. And I think sort of the next steps is that Alicia was able to attend the meeting, and she will be determining next leadership, and we'll sort of use this brainstorming session to sort of move the process along. Are there any questions?
I don't see any hands.
Cool.
Okay, thank you, Anisha. It was really a very robust meeting. It was very good. I liked the discussion that was happening. Yeah, so we have a lot of work to do around that. Yes, Trevor, I physically see your
Quick
hand.
question. Yeah, I couldn't find that. How many members are in this committee now?
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 members and then a public member. I think part of the discussion is once we have an agenda, perhaps other people would like to join the committee, like more of a set agenda for the year. And then also, I think certainly open to more public members and just more people adding to the dialogue.
No, that's fine. I just know we were struggling at one point to even have a committee with 1 or 2 people. So that's good news.
There are a few, and the people who came to that meeting felt very invested in the subcommittee, I would say. So, people felt very strongly about all of the items we were discussing.
Definitely. Thank you. And thank you for chairing that meeting, Tariq. It was awesome. And Linda, thank you for running the Zoom for that meeting as well. Okay,
Thought
Chinatown.
it was a great meeting, by the way.
Yeah, thank
I,
you.
I
It
was,
was.
I was really impressed.
I was impressed by everyone. The conversation was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Chinatown Neighborhood Planning Subcommittee, nothing. Okay, old business. So I guess we'll put this on old business, Jackie. We have the Zoom set up for the 28th of February for our Lunar New Year. Jackie, would you like to give a little information about that and what that's going to look like?
Yeah, so
Thank you.
so I had a couple conversation with Larissa on that, and also I seek May's input on that as well. So what we are going to do is that we're gonna do three things. We want to do an origami crane folding, just like it's like an icebreaker. So people gonna fold a crane together, because in the Japanese culture, like origami crane actually symbolize wishing people health and long life. And we figured that right now, because of COVID, so it kind of symbolized community board wishing all the people, all the COVID patients get well very soon, and New York City get back soon. So that is one thing. And the second thing is that Museum of Chinese American, they just had an online, they just opened up a online archive about some Chinatown photos. And these photos were taken by a Jewish photographer who spent like 2 decades in Chinatown. He took 120,000 photos, and then he donated all these photos to MoCA. And that, like, for those who want to see Chinatowns in 70s, in 80s, I think that is like a window to it. And Jonathan, our board member Jonathan, is the chair of MoCA, so I want him to give us an introduction about that archive. So when I was talking with Larissa, I was wondering, like, hey, why this Jewish photographer spent like 20 years in Chinatown? And I think Larissa is going to answer that question after Jonathan's introduction. And then following that would be we're going to talk a little bit about, well, actually not a little bit. We're going to spend some time to talk about, like, it's like a fortune telling thing that, because in Chinese zodiac, we have like 12 animals, right? So each person is assigned one animal. And then this year, like, some animals would do better than others. And Alan and Wendy are going to talk about like how each person would do in the coming year, 2021. And just for Larissa is born, is a rooster. She's a rooster, and this is actually, like, I checked with the information, this is the best year for all the roosters among all the 12 animals. So I think Wendy and Alan are going to like split the work, like 6 animals, like Wendy gonna take care of 6 animals, and Alan gonna take care for the rest of animals. So it will be like an interactive event. So that's it.
Yeah, that should be fun. I'm excited. We just got to get the plan in motion. So I think, Larissa, we're just waiting for the setup for the Zoom, and then we can send all of the full board members the link. I didn't want this to be like an opportunity for the elected officials to come on and start talking politics and stuff. We just really just wanted to make this a fun event for everyone, just to let their hair down, kind of like Christmas. But I mean, I think that I think this is going to be a little bit more interactive than the Christmas event. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Jackie, for taking this on. Looking forward to it. I love making those little cranes. Okay. So now, is there any new business?
Susan has her hand up.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I realized I never finished the details for the election. So when we had the last election, we sent the ballots out the Friday before the board meeting with all the other board materials to the board members. Clearly, we're not going to have that in time today. So I want to figure out what we're doing and whether we need any special instructions. So Paul, do you think that spreadsheet would be ready to send out Monday to board members? You're looking at me
The
like I'm
actual form?
crazy. What?
The actual form? Yeah, it'd be ready.
Yeah,
on-
so I'm remembering, you need to help me because I'm remembering that we sent it out before the board meeting to everyone, is right?
We
Was it
sent
right-
out what it would look like.
We sent out what it would look like, and then we sent them the actual form.
One about 15 minutes before the meeting started.
So we need to send out that information. So Monday, can you give me something so I could send it to them and say, this is what it's going to look like? And you'll get
Money
the real
first.
thing. And
Money
What?
first, and then you get your ballot.
Money first?
Money first, and then you get your ballot.
Okay, then you
I'm
send
just
me
kidding.
that.
Yeah, I'll have it for you Monday. I'll have
Yeah,
it
I
for you
just,
over
I
the
just want to get all the details down. So we'll send that out Monday and then who sends out the ballot an hour before?
I will
Did
do it.
You do it, and
it was
so
me,
I
yeah.
need to, I think you have an updated list, right?
I think so. You may, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I do, but if I don't, I'll just ask you again.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that we didn't screw any of that up. Okay, thank you.
All right. Is there any new business? Anything anyone have to say before we exit off? No, no hands? Just make sure.
Just happy New Year, happy Lunar New Year to everyone who is celebrating.
Yeah, happy Lunar New Year. And also, as we are approaching the end of Black History Month, guys, we're approaching the end, we only have one more week of Black History Month. So yeah, let's not forget that either. That all being said, may I have a motion to close tonight's meeting?
A motion that we close the meeting, Alicia?
Anyone seconding?
Second.
Okay, and all in favor?
Need to have a roll call.
Okay,
Yes,
roll
I'll do
call
roll-
vote. That's right. Roll call
Okay.
vote to exit out. Thank you.
Alicia Lewis Coleman,
Yes.
Larissa Shaneberg,
Yes.
Eric Diaz.
I don't know what happened to Eric.
I don't either. Shirley Fennessy, yes. Thomas Rosa,
Yes.
Michelle Cooper Smith,
Yes.
Anisha Shaneberg. Sorry, I gave you Larissa's last name. Anisha Stevens, sorry. Anisha Stevens? Sorry. Maylee,
Yes.
Jackie Wong,
Yes.
Linda Jones,
Yes.
Trevor Holland,
Yes.
and Paul Ringel.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I got everybody. Apparently this is a really bad year for the horse, so everyone should pray for me. I'm not super happy. I looked that up. Now I feel like I'm cursed, but it's
Oh,
okay.
no.
Wendy will tell you what to do.
Oh, that's what I need is I need her to tell me what to do. So I'm just to know what to do. All right, I got
Cheryl,
everybody. Thank
You're
you.
gonna send me the minutes tonight,
I'm gonna send everything tonight. I don't really
Okay,
have the
thank you.
edits. I was pretty able to make thorough notes, but if
That's
there's-
fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. I will see everyone on Tuesday. Have a wonderful end of your work week and enjoy your weekend. Hopefully it won't snow anymore. Good night, all.
Thank you.
Good night.